Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Show. Today I have a pleasure to actually it's the last episode that we're recording in this year, and I have a pleasure to talk with somebody that I'm seeing a lot on LinkedIn, and she's talking about the stuff that uh, I was really into a couple of years ago, and something that for the longest time I consider as, it comes naturally to me. I cannot teach others. But we're going to go deeper into that, digest all those things, and we're going to talk about, catching the attention of your target audience, about lowering your acquisition cost, speeding up your sales cycle, and all those things, through the lens of the conversion copywriting. So join me in welcoming Eden Bidani to the show. Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you pronounce it very
Nice.
well. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. First, I was sick, and my left part of the face was paralyzed. Then
Oh, wow.
lots of other stuff. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I just woke up one day, and like the whole left side of my face was paralyzed. It was like,
That,
but
that, wow. I'm very happy to hear that you've recovered.
yeah, corticosteroids, five of them can do that and get you back into shape.
Good to know.
Yeah. So tell me, how are you? How's everything? We
Yeah,
didn't have time to actually catch up on those small things.
yeah, absolutely. No, it's like you said, it's been a long time coming. I've been enjoying your content on LinkedIn as well. So I'm really happy to meet with you and discuss all things marketing.
Yeah. So one thing I gotta ask you. So when we're talking about copywriting, about what it can do, how it can increase conversions, and do all those other stuff, what is usually the starting point? To start the conversation around it.
So the first point of conversation is actually just have conversations not only with people on the internal team, so key persons who are in charge of specific departments on somewhere at a company, but it's also to try and speak with customers, if it's possible, to try and get as close to the customer, to the client's customers as possible. That just gives you the deepest insights into what is actually going on in terms of their marketing, how their marketing is being received, how people are perceiving the company, what they see as their strengths and weaknesses, because often there is a huge disconnect between what the company says. Not all the time. Often there is a huge disconnect between what the company says and what the customers actually think or feel about the company.
Yeah, I see that. I see that a lot. Listening to you, I remember back in the days when I was working in the agency, and it was like, all classical stuff as the agencies are doing at the moment. We never talk to the potential customers, or the companies rarely gave us the information, or the facilitated the approach to the customers, so we can talk to them. It was always like, you are the external factor, and you are providing the service, but like, we expect you to provide conversions, to provide
Yeah.
results.
Exactly. There's a perception, especially in B2B marketing, that it's like, well, you're supposed to understand people. But the best way to understand people is by talking to them. I mean, a psychologist can't just look at a person and say, oh, I know what's wrong with you. You actually have to start talking with them. And it's only once you've really started to unpack and you've built up trust, or you've broken the ice, that all these things start coming out. And I think it's very much the same for B2B, specifically for B2B companies. It's very difficult. So if you're a person that's interfacing though with the company, you're representing the company, it's even hard for you to talk to your own customers because you already have this working relationship, whether they're paying for a $19 a month SaaS tool or they're actually paying $50,000 a year for an enterprise type of product. At the end of the day, really, there's an existing working relationship. So people are worried about hurting each other's feelings, or they're worried about being too honest or being
Yes.
too open. There's a kind of stigma in the air, and so it can actually be really beneficial having an external person who's not tied specifically to either company to come in, and then they feel actually comfortable to start spilling all of this information that it would have otherwise been very, very difficult to collect.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think in most of the episodes of this show, like one thing we mentioned is the importance of having conversations with the customers or potential customers, however we define it, but getting to know them to the core. So not only business, but also stuff related to, what they like, what they dislike, so we can kind of, see who we are talking with really. Because like those other stuff outside of business can tell us, what kind of person they are, and some other stuff, because it's not only business. I don't know, that's actually the question that I want to ask you, because
Mhm.
I see people say, it's jobs to be done. That's how we define the perfect customer, let's say.
Mhm.
But then my opinion is that we also need to dig outside of just jobs to be done. What's your perspective on that?
I absolutely agree, because it's not jobs to be done is a really, really, really solid framework, and it's one that I rely on a lot in order to help uncover what people are looking to do. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean so that the top two jobs or the top two most or the top two pieces of evidence, I guess, would be necessarily the strongest hypotheses. You also have to take a look at those and say, okay, given that we have this information, from the client, and given that we have this information from the market in general, what's the best approach that balances all three? So that's when you start to get into when you start to see some companies doing some really strong, really bold, and really creative campaigns that still meet the business's needs from a strategic perspective. At the same time, it meets the customer's needs because they feel that it's customer centric. At the same time, it's doing something different that's going to help them get attention. So one of the other problems that companies struggle with is that you see that they do talk to customers. They do have some voice of customer data. They do consider themselves to be customer centric, but then it's hard for them. They keep falling back in the same patterns. So, or for example, if every company starts applying jobs to be done, we'll find that there are a lot of jobs that overlap, and so companies start competing on the same pool of
Yes.
customers when they're not actually thinking outside that bigger circles. And that, again, that's kind of meta thinking. You have to take all that information and then step back and reprocess it. But at the same time, it's something that can yield much more powerful results.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'm thinking like now I'm living here in the Balkans, and there are like, a couple of countries that come out of ex-Yugoslavia. And, if somebody doesn't know the market, they will say, okay, there are jobs to be done on that market. We can go with the same persona for each
Yeah.
country. And then we are so much different. And I had to learn that I don't know if it's the hardest way, but coming up as somebody who was working on a Canadian and US market, then working on a Serbian market.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why do we have it was a company that has accounting software. And like, why do we have like visuals on social media, which are like stock photos? Because like in US and Canada, it was back in 2018, 19. The trend was that it was all going natural. Let's have the real photos of the real people. And like, and the CEO told me, like we tried it all. This is the only thing that works. And I'm like, how they're doing it in Slovenia? How they are doing like in Slovenia? You can do a lots of other stuff. You can do with animated pigs, pig and the money and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But like here, they don't react to anything. Try it out on your own. And I tried it. I got real people. I experimented with lots of stuff. Like all the other stuff got like 5 maybe 10 likes, nobody comment, nothing. But when I got the stock photos of men in suits, like it's not even 100 likes or comments. It's like 1,500. It's
Wow.
actually crazy. And then I realized, okay, like people in Serbia perceive accountants as people in suits, and that's it. Like they react only
Mhm.
to that. Then we use 80% of the stock photos of men in suits from the internet for the social media. So it's like they on the moon, they are in the boat, they are like on the
Yeah.
ladders, all kind of stuff, whatever we can come up with. It was crazy, but that's what was giving results, not only in likes and comments but also in conversions. When it comes to the webinar, when it comes to conversions from the webinar to the people that were using the software and paying for it. It was kind of crazy.
I think you touched on something that's really, really important, that so much of it is contextual. So much about the surrounding culture and society actually impacts on how the marketing is perceived, which is why getting to know the customers is so very important. Getting to know, so if you know that you have a core customer base in Europe versus you have a core customer base in the US, you need to talk to both groups of customers. You can't just talk up to the group in the US and say, okay, so that must be what they want in. You can't assume anything. And I think that's something I have a background in anthropology and sociology, and it's the same thing. They emphasize doing this deep customer research. You cannot imagine or start planning out or collecting ideas to start any kind of social policy or social program if you have not actually spoken to the people and found the best way that they want to be helped. So it's not taking the top down
Yeah.
approach. I'm going to help you the way I know how to help people. It's actually asking people, well, how do you want to be helped? What would you think would be good? Again, it's not going in the line of Henry Ford that said, if I asked people what they wanted, they said faster horses. It's more in the line of understanding that they want something fast. They want something that's going to help them get from A to B. And then again, taking that a step back and then looking at what else is going on and how you can apply those things moving forward.
Yeah, and I usually add one thing to that. If they don't get what they want, even though if that thing doesn't exist, they will be pissed off, and you will be the one who is guilty for that. Usually, that's how it goes. I like to connect that when you have something which is new, like the new product or the new technology that you bring to the market doesn't exist yet. You need to create new demand, but you use the service and all kind of stuff. People will give you the answers
Yes.
based on what they know that exists. And if they still think there is a problem, they will give you the closest one that it is to the solution that they know. It doesn't mean that it solves the problem, but if it doesn't solve the problem, then better brace yourself, because if they choose it and it's not what they need, then it becomes hard.
Absolutely. Agree.
Yeah, so I've been wondering about that connection with the anthropology, but now when you explain it, I totally get it, because I guess in anthropology you need to dig deeper and to
Mhm.
connect the dots to have, all the data in one place and then to know lots of other stuff. Basically, anthropology is hard. It's not something that you can learn just in a couple of days and just catch it up and go. It requires lots of reading, lots of education, lots of research. And I like now that comparison with researching your target groups, the way they act, the way they do what they need, and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different schools of thought within anthropology and sociology as well. So anthropology and sociology is like 50-50. There's a 50% of the material that kind of crosses over, which is why people often study them together. There's a large amount of research methods and things that are very similar between the two disciplines. That said, anthropology definitely places a strong emphasis on even getting down to the individual level. Sociology does as well, but anthropology really get as deep down as possible. For example, in anthropology, there's an emphasis on authenticity as well of the data that you're collecting, to the point that when you're creating transcripts of conversations that you've had, you should keep them verbatim, as in you cannot any pause, you have to leave that in, because that can mean something's really significant in how a person is expressing. So every tiny detail is taken into account. So it's very fascinating when you look at it. And it feels strange because now I'm looking back at what I studied at university. I'm saying, this is what people are talking about now. It's like, this should have been there should be more anthropologists working in marketing.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I was just this morning. I was reading a book, epic fantasy, but it's like, somebody was trying to dig up the trails of the animal, and he was explaining to a female going riding with him, like, you need to listen and observe what's going on around us. Like, coming up a couple of miles back, like there was a bear going after us, coming closer to us, then going away, then coming close, then going away. You didn't notice anything. It because you don't you didn't learn to listen to those things, to observe, to follow the trails and everything. And this is how I see it also in marketing. When it comes to the business, we need to learn how to see the things, because sometimes they are obvious, sometimes they aren't, they are more complicated. But if we are not looking to find those things, we won't find it.
Absolutely. If you're not trained to notice, as you mentioned, if you're not trained to look for those things, you will just pass by them because you won't even notice those details.
Yeah, I mean, basically, welcome to my next LinkedIn post. That was this kind of conversation. But tell me, when we think about the conversion, it's not only the copy. It's how it looks. It's how it works. It's how it sounds sometimes. So okay, starting from getting to know our customers, but then I guess the next step would be, seeing what's over there and trying to optimize based on that. For example, if you're not starting from the scratch.
Yes, absolutely. So in that case, it's very difficult still to come in and optimize something if you still haven't gone back and talked to customers, because there are some shortcuts you can take, but at the same time, if you have some marketing assets that aren't working, usually the reason is because they are still missing that key step, those core perspectives that they could gain through conducting voice of customer research, interviews and surveys. So depending on the restrictions or the limitations, obviously when the company is larger, when you're looking at mid-market and enterprise companies, hundreds of thousands of employees, it's something that's very, very difficult to try and get to the customer. The bureaucracy, the red tape, things like that are very difficult. But what you often find is really good are things like customer support calls. So email threads, customer support calls, because when people are talking to customer service, they let it all out. They know that customer support is actually supposed to be there to help them. So they feel much more comfortable telling them what they're struggling with than they would say to someone from the sales team that comes, hey, I'm not trying to sell you something else, but I would like to ask your opinion about X. As we mentioned way back in the beginning, there's an existing working relationship there. So it makes things a little bit difficult. So trying to listen to recorded demo calls where people know that they're not yet being sold on the product, but so they have a chance to ask questions. What questions are they asking? What objections are they? Do they have? What expectations they have of the meeting as well? In addition, so demo calls, sales calls where they throw up objections like, maybe we want to do it next month. I need to get buy-in. I need to do this, and how people handle those objections and seeing where's that middle ground. So even in a case where it's difficult to get to the end customer from bureaucracy, or because they have existing assets, they have a short time frame, they need to move forward quickly, they need to just get it working, there are still other ways that you can get close to the customer without ruffling any feathers.
Yeah, I would like to add also like review sites. Those can be also good. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's a good resource to go and see. Also, it's not only things related to your company, because usually, you have competitors, you have other people that are working on the more or less the same thing. So you can see the feedback for those things, actually use it for your own. And one thing that I like to mention that I'm often using is search for people's pain on Twitter. that works very well. No matter if you're trying to sell something or you're trying to use it, to integrate it in the copy or whatever. But those things work really well. Like Twitter seems to be like a venting platform for lots of people. Like I can go with a different nick, not my real name, and I can go and rent it out all on Twitter.
Absolutely, I would definitely agree. And in that same perspective, I often find Reddit is very helpful for the specific reason that it's anonymous. So people feel so comfortable to ask anything, to share anything, to give their honest opinion. Yes, there's trolls, but there's trolls on every social media platform. There's no way of getting around it. But at the same time, you have people asking really honest questions, asking them of people that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get in touch with. I actually had to research a CIO role the other day, and I found a thread on Twitter that said, a thread on Reddit said, "I'm a CIO, ask me anything." So it was, and it was wonderful. You could get a sense of how he expressed himself. People ask, "So what does your day look like?" He's like, "I get 4 hours of sleep a day. I do this, I do that. It's mostly meetings. I don't get to." So you really get an understanding. You start fleshing out a real 4-dimensional version of a buyer persona. So you really get to understand what they do, what their day is like. You understand that they have very little time to read any marketing or advertising themselves at all. So you need to start to be creative. If he gets 4 hours of sleep at night, he's not going to spend 15 minutes reading a cold email. He's going to maybe spend 30 seconds reading a cold email, if he even gets a cold email at all. So it actually makes you rethink your entire approach. So just getting as close to the customer as possible it just helps. It affects everything from the planning, from the strategizing, deciding on which channels you want to use, and then actually deciding which messages you're going to actually use in those channels to help reach people.
Yeah, I mean, solving out the basics is what gets you to success in the end. That's always, and I'm repeating this, every time, because that's where all the things that you need are.
Absolutely.
Now, I mean, that's also one thing that we didn't mention. That's also how you develop the product, how you listen to them. Where do you need to go from this point to the others? But let's talk about one thing that I think it's happening a lot, and it is, like you have done the research, even prepared the copy and everything, and let's assume that you give it to the company so they can implement it. Yeah. What's happening in this case is, they look at the content and they are coming up, maybe, we are pushing too hard or we are too extreme, and they narrow it down, and what comes up on the website is some vanilla content that is, trying not to offend anybody, trying not to push hard on some points. Are we actually changing that approach and starting to write more naturally as we speak, as we do the research, or this thing is still not changing?
So I think it's difficult, and there will still, even when you have initial calls with clients and they say, yes, we want fresh, yes, we want a new approach, yes, we're all for it, and go through it and throw as much creativity as you want into it. And then when they see how creative it is, it sometimes, even if it's not, let's say, not very creative, on the spectrum of creativity, so it's not too bold that it would scare their grandmother or something, but it's still bold for them, or it's bold for their niche or their industry, that it can still throw them off. And so one of the things that I found that has been helpful is keeping them involved. So as a result of coming through those customer interviews, as a result of taking that research, to actually send, I'll have an email or a short call, or compile the information to into a basic report, even just a couple of pages in Google, like saying, look, this is what we've discovered. This is where we think the real opportunity is. This is what we would like to apply moving forward. Are you in alignment with this? If you give this okay, if this is what we recommend. If you want to change it after, that's fine, but this is what we're recommending. So do you want us to be, do you want us to be a partner? Do you want us to help push you forward? Or do you want us to be an order taker? Like what? Yeah. How do you imagine that role? So that's something that's always difficult, and sometimes it still happens. They still say yes, they still sign off on the assets, the new marketing assets that you prepare, and then someone comes in at the last minute and goes, oh, I can't write that, and then they change everything, and and you go, oh wow, we finally see it live.
Yeah, it's happening a lot, and it's in most cases it's because there are so many eyeballs on each piece of the content. But also it happens because for example, there's a finance industry, procurement, those kind of stuff that they have strong regulations. And
Yes.
basically, I don't know if that's your experience. What I found out is, before you even start working on the research and everything, you need to get from them what's straight yes and what's a straight no, just so
Yes.
like, we cannot ever get into this, and then you are more relaxed and more chilled, so where is your space to operate, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing what restrictions you have with regards to regulations and what you can say or what you can't say. I mean, it's the same with Facebook ads. People used to write anything in Facebook ads. I remember
Yeah.
working for a client like almost like 4 years ago, and Facebook ads, you could still pretty much put anything in a Facebook ad. You could target people directly, you could say the word you, and then the crackdowns started happening and all the ads started getting rejected, and we had to learn on the go. Like, it was literally a case of taking the word you out of a sentence or changing a thing. So it was really, it was, when you have that information up front, you can work with it. But when it comes at a later part, it's very, very difficult to try and then optimize things without, to fit those guidelines once you've already created these new marketing assets.
Yeah, and I think also another point of that is, you need to know the platforms and technology you
Mhm.
are writing for. Because in what I found out, and it's still interesting because it's still happening. When you look at the ads on LinkedIn, most companies are just okay, they are promoting their blog post, for example, but they are using the first sentence and just writing something, just so we can have any text over there, and it's usually
Yeah.
like cut out and half of the sentence, and it doesn't tell anything. Or like Facebook, you have, it's the same as LinkedIn, you have those 3 lines where you need
Mhm.
to have a copy, and so many copywriters as well, not only like companies, don't go that deep into the technical side of things.
Yeah, especially with ads. Sorry, just on that point, especially with ads, it's something, there's a lot of technical requirements, especially for ads. So you can purposefully write long ads. Like, you can, I think LinkedIn, the maximum character limit of an ad is 600 characters, but after 150 characters, it gets cut off. It does mean that it will say see more and they can click to keep reading, but then that's your decision if you want to write a short ad, or you
Mhm.
want to write an ad that is powerful and that is going to actually pull them past that 150 characters into the rest of the ad. So that is something, but you need to have that awareness. You need to know that the character limit cutoff for LinkedIn headlines is 60 characters. So you have that 60 character barrier limit. But you have to understand that those are the limitations. So you can't necessarily, you have to choose a short word instead of a long word. You have to decide what benefit you're going to call out in the headline. So it makes the process much more interesting. That said,
Definitely.
yeah, but that said, if you have those restrictions, then you can still be very creative within those restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, basically you can have another landing page on Facebook if you look at it like that,
Yeah.
as you can have now on LinkedIn organic.
Mm.
Basically the main point of your ad becomes the see more if you go there.
Yes.
It's not something else. Tell me, let's go and maybe talk about, if you're up to it, maybe some of the examples, some of the successful examples that you have done, because maybe I can just read it for the people so they know what kind of results did you get out of working with your formula with clients. So it's like $1 million in sales in 1 month out of $250 product from cold traffic, 140K in sales over 2 days of Black Friday promotion, 2 times the number of web to app signups with zero negative user feedback, 500 plus applications 40 place $2K course in the middle of a pandemic, and even more. Those are like really impressive numbers.
Thank you. So I do want to add a disclaimer to that, and I do also say that the teams that I was working with were very capable, and we had, obviously not every project is going to be as successful as that. Not every project is going to achieve impressive numbers. It takes like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a team.
Yeah.
It's a team effort to pull out those results. That said, there have been some significant instances over the past few years where we've seen some really great results come out. So for most of the campaigns, it was really coming for most of the results that we're mentioning here. A lot of it was coming down to understanding the customer and really understanding what they were looking for and what they were struggling with, and how they were in their mindset, or what they were thinking at the point in time when they came across these different marketing assets. So, for example, the 500 plus applications for the course. So he already had a list. He had an engaged community that was waiting as well and interested in learning about the course. That said, he launched just at the start of the pandemic. So, and it was not cheap. He was asking, it was a $2,000 plus investment.
Mm-hmm.
So at the same time, knowing that so even though we had an engaged listener, even though suddenly people were not working, to spend $2,000 on a course is still something that's very, very difficult to do. So we actually took that story and we made that part of the sales page, part of the landing page to apply for the course. And we said, we know that things are difficult. We know this is that, but given that, and so we were able to mitigate that on the page, and feel that also played a significant role in helping to drive those results, despite having launched at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, you basically integrated the current situation that you cannot, influence, but you can acknowledge it and say, okay, this is what's happening right now. We know how do you feel. We know how it is out there. We are all part of that, but we still gotta go on.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, again, having those insights. So again, if we'd kind of ignored what was happening currently in the market, again, so we have the client's desires, we have the customer's desires, and we have what was actually happening. So we took that step back. We looked at what was happening and we said, well, we can't pretend like it's not happening. Then we have to integrate the conversation about the pandemic, because that's what everyone is talking about. You can't not escape it. So to have something that doesn't reference it, and not just by saying these unusual times, it's actually by referencing it directly and saying we understand that it's a struggle, etc., and going into exploring a couple of the pain points associated with that made people say, okay, so they actually are listening to what I'm struggling with, or they do understand me.
Yeah, sounds good. And I like that. I mean, basically, it was something that we were all talking about when the pandemic started, because, companies were like, should we integrate those inside the conversations? Because we don't know how much it will last. Mm-hmm. Should we just stay quiet? Should we just support the employees, or however we should communicate that? But, you still need to sell things. You still need to earn. And, if you just ignore what's happening outside, it's not going to work, because the circumstances have changed.
Absolutely. And so it was very, very interesting to see companies market since the pandemic started. So a lot of them, they, as you mentioned, they almost took one of three different approaches. So one approach was they ignored it and pretended that things were still going on. So people, okay, they're not working 8 hours from a cubicle in an office, they're working 8 hours from home. 8 hours in a cubicle in an office versus 8 hours with your toddlers at home and trying to take conference calls, and the internet keeps falling down because suddenly everyone's on the internet 24/7. It's a very, very, very different situation. So you can't brush that aside and pretend like it's not happening. But it was interesting. So some companies, you could feel that they were trying to do that. Some kind of acknowledged it, I don't know, in a bit of a different way. Like, so in these unusual times, like, well, everyone was laughing about
yeah.
those, even though the core of that message is sincere, it was so kind of whitewashing through or pushing aside. It was acknowledging it with one sentence instead of actually asking, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How are you, what are you doing to get through this? And then there were some companies that were actually really listening deeply to their customers and then pivoted very, very quickly to help them meet their needs. And those are companies that we see that are suddenly very, very, very strong today, because they don't just have, because they've been able to build up these huge communities and these huge lists of followers in the meantime, because they were just so close to the customer and they were actually listening and responding to them.
Yeah. What are some other things that we can do to kind of increase the conversion? Something like, as we are talking about, so, acknowledging the circumstances around us, and kind of developing the message and everything around that. What are some other things that we can do?
One thing I've been talking about with lately, and I haven't been posting about it with much, but it's the importance of understanding what the user is likely to be doing or what their mindset is when they meet your marketing, when they come across your marketing asset. When people are in Facebook, they're not there to look at ads. They are not there to look at ads. When people are on LinkedIn, they are not on LinkedIn to look at ads. A lot of marketing takes the approach. It's like, we've done something amazing and come take a look at it. And it's trying to force people to do something when they're not in the state of mind to do so. It's a unique challenge, but it's just a matter of understanding what the user is actually currently doing, what other distractions or things they're facing at the time, and having that understanding, and then being able to create something that is not offensive to them. It's not disrupting too much what they're doing, but that it's still helping you achieve the marketing goals that you're looking to achieve. So sometimes it's a matter of making a lot of small micro conversions and then asking them to take a bigger step. Instead of trying what people say, the funnel, you run an ad, you have a landing page, boom, email sequence, sell them something. It does not work like that. People see your ad for 2 seconds. They open the landing page on desktop, they open another tab, they Google your name, they decide to come back to it later, they come back, the page, they can't even find it anymore. It's like, it happens, but it gets marked in the attribution system like it's a dead lead, or it's a non-returning customer. That's not the point. They were busy, other things were going on. We only know this like 1% of what's actually going on in people's lives when they come across your ad. We don't even know that 1%, I'd argue. We just know what other things they're likely to see in their feed at the same time because of the targeting. So it's a matter of just really understanding deeply what they're doing, how much, and if you're able, not how much, but how you're able to break through that noise and actually get to them and show them, I have something interesting to share with you. It's going to take a few minutes of your time, but if you're it will be worth those few minutes of your time that you're going to invest. I'll give you an example. So you mentioned one of the examples was we doubled the number of signups without generating negative user feedback. So this was for for a product, and they had a website that functioned a bit like Quora. So you could put in a question, you get lots of different answers to it, but you only got one free answer if you didn't have an account. So you could only see one free answer, and then a sign-up wall would come up and cover up the rest of the answers and say, you have to sign up to get more answers. The shorter that, and everyone knows them. If you go to Wall Street Journal, you go to New York Times or anything, and you go and you try to read through, and you've hit that free automatic limit or whatever it is per month, and it's the most frustrating user experience. It makes people pay and it makes people convert, but it frustrates users so much that they were getting a lot of negative feedback from users of the website. It was saying, it's like, we don't like this. This is really annoying. So, and the copy that the original copy that they were using was totally best practices. So it was totally why you should sign up, join thousands of, join 10 or even 50,000 people, something who are using the app. It's free forever. You're not going to be asked for anything. It takes 2 minutes. So like, really, it was really good copy. It wasn't that it was bad copy, but it was talking about all the benefits of signing up and trying to get people to sign up, but they were still getting negative feedback. So I said, well, wait, we know that this sign up wall is really, really annoying. They're actually in the mindset of looking for more answers. They don't want to be sold on the idea of why it's better for them to convert. how about let's see what we can do to simplify. And so what we actually did was this simplify to say, you can, I'm not even sure what the exact wording was anymore, but I think it's more like, either view more answers or unlock more answers when you sign up now. It takes 1 minute, free forever. Like that was it. So instead of trying to sell them on why we didn't have to sell them. They already knew the value. They got value from one answer that they were seeing, one result that they were seeing on the page. By showing them how clear and how quick they were able to unlock more value, it made sense for them to convert. And they reached statistical significance very quickly with that A/B test, and they literally doubled the number of signups, the number of new accounts, and they got zero negative feedback. So instead of positioning it as a way to sell, it's like, no, wait, just do this one quick thing and you can unlock more value. Obviously, it was an easy ask because we weren't asking them for much information. We weren't asking them to pay, but still it's the same kind of concept.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think we all generally need to simplify the way we communicate and the way, I mean, these days I'm analyzing my post in a website and everything. Like, it definitely needs to be simplified because the moment where I started growing on LinkedIn was the moment when I realized, what I'm talking about for me is basics. But for some people, like moving on from lead gen model to demand gen and those kinds of, it's revolution in marketing because they never learned to do it in any other way. And I was like, damn, I need to go and explain sort of the things. But like in episode with Jason Vanna, he also said, maybe if you look at my post on LinkedIn, it's all basics. 1, 2 to 5 sentences. That's it, talking about branding, values, foundation, positioning, those kind of stuff. But he told me, like, until I found that the company on the discovery call has those things sorted out, I will post those things. When I found that they have solved these things out, like that 80% of the company I'm talking with have those things figured out, then I'll move into the next phase. But until then, I'm perfectly fine with just posting about those things. And that's actually true and very right and very clear thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a limited I think marketers tend to overestimate how much attention someone is willing to give their marketing assets. It doesn't mean that people don't engage with content. It doesn't mean that people don't engage with ads. If people will watch a 60-minute video sales letter, they will sit and they will watch it right through to the end. There are people that do that and convert because the content they found was interesting, or they literally felt like they couldn't stop watching. So, and that was because they felt that they were getting some value out of the content, or that, again, that was interesting and entertaining at the same time. So that's, I think, something that we need to go back and apply to the marketing. Is it interesting? Is it giving them some sort of value? Are they going to feel like, are they going to walk away, even if they don't convert, are they going to walk away and feel like this is a good use of their 5 minutes or their next 10 minutes? Are they going to feel like, oh, I got sucked down funnel again? So, it's a matter of, are we communicating, not just are we communicating simply, but are we clear in what we're communicating? Is that providing some sort of value, whether that value is educational, entertainment, or any other kind? But is this something that they're going to be able to take something away, or come away, at least at the very, very least, come away with a good impression of the company?
Yeah. I mean, look, you mentioned one thing before. It's, we need to know how people are consuming content on different platforms. And when we know that, then we know what are some things that we need to do to kind of create relationship with them. Let's call it warm them up, or, create the awareness, educate them. Because it's not just, we're going to press play on the ads, on the conversion ads, and we're going to get them to convert and do what we want. Because, for example, on LinkedIn, people are willingly consuming content in the feed. And you have even like a small blog post you can write in the feed. They can consume it. You can get them educated because they will consume it. If you ask them to click to go somewhere, they maybe won't do it, because most of them aren't ready. And then it's not just pressing that button to start advertising and get them to the website to convert, but there's also impressions are becoming more and more important in this way, and how people are actually consuming the content, and then simplifying things. Definitely, I remember one example that we have done is for the what was the name of the brand? Doesn't matter. They sell toothbrushes,
Mm-hmm.
and basically they didn't know how to figure out if how to get to the right people for the specific type of toothbrushes, and it's those interdental toothbrushes, like people that have spaces between the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't just ask them in the survey or whatever, do you have
Yeah.
the space between so we came up with asking them, do you use two takes, and
Yeah.
when they say yes, those are the people that need those
It's-
kind of toothbrushes. And it's just figuring out the way people are thinking, and not just going, no, if we said are you using interdental toothbrush, they have no idea what those are. And
Yeah.
so going all back to the basics and explaining things to the core, and what you said, that's really hard, and that's why you need the good research.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would have been very difficult for you to come across or even come close to that, or to even imagine how to structure the right question, or to ask that right question, if you hadn't done that research. So you found that people are likely to have these other things. So they don't wake up thinking, they don't wake up solution aware thinking, I need a product aware. I need an interdental toothbrush. They wake up going like, man, this is annoying. I need to use two toothpicks every time to clean my teeth. And so just making sure you're aligning with where they are, where what's their stage of awareness is currently, and what they're struggling with, to actually help them understand how you can help them.
Yeah, because sometimes you need to draw the environment, the wider picture, to kind of get to the core of the things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm thinking, like, there is an example when you have flowers on the balcony, actually,
Mm-hmm.
and you want them to sell them. What's the name in English? Like the thing where you put the flowers.
The vase or the pot. Yeah.
Yeah. It can be a flower pot, and basically you're selling that. So to come to that point when they can think about the flower pot, you basically need to tell them, okay, do you want to have, you want to draw them a picture of a beautiful balcony with a great artistic picture on the wall, with a table, two chairs, all kind of stuff. And then when they sit down, when they pour a drink or whatever and look outside, they want to see the flowers. For
Mm-hmm.
them to see the flowers, they need the flower pot.
Yeah, exactly. You need to put yourself in the customer's environment and see that from their perspective, to really to be able to understand how, again, as I mentioned before, a lot of companies are very ambitious, so we can overestimate how much attention someone's willing to give us. We overestimate how much they're willing to listen, and we just overestimate how important they see our products and services in their lives in total. So the flower pot, you can turn that notion or that image that you've painted of looking out the window and just seeing buildings, or looking out the balcony window and seeing beautiful flowers. That's something powerful that they can relate to. They understand that you're not just trying to sell them on beautiful flowers, but you're selling them that moment, that feeling as well.
Exactly. Well said. So, one question for the end. If you would say three things that can help people, optimize their copy, what would those three things be? Whatever
So,
comes to your mind first.
so I think the first thing would be to write an active voice, not passive voice. Often just that itself will make the copy much tighter and will make it much more relevant and easy to read. The second thing would be to remove the word you as much as possible. Sorry, to remove the word we or our company or we do or as much as possible from the copy. And the third, I think, is just off the top of my head, the third for me really is just as we were talking about before, it's paying attention to which platform the copy is going to be published in. So if you know you're publishing an ad, a Twitter ad has a different character limit to a LinkedIn ad, has a different character limit to a Facebook ad, has a different character. So so you need to have an understanding of how people are going to actually see the ads. So it's not just a matter of writing it well, but it's actually taking that step back and looking at it. How is someone else going to read this? Because what you can see on a Google Doc is very, very different to what someone will experience natively on a platform.
Totally agree. Great advice. So tell me and all the people listening where they can find more information about you, except LinkedIn, of course.
So or LinkedIn or on my website, greenlightcopy.com.
Yeah, guys, make sure to visit the website. Actually, you can see the way Eden is writing on the website. I really like when it goes, from the homepage, and then you scroll down and you go through the text, and it really drives you. And I like those kind of things. I like longer landing pages and longer copy. I remember coming back to that. Sean Vossler.
I think the name is familiar. Yes.
Yeah, he's a copywriter and also has a great book. Now I think the print version is coming up on the copywriting. I recommend it a lot because it's mostly psychology and those things. But like going to his website, to the landing page, and I was reading, and it was driving me. I said, man, I gotta give him a credit. I don't want that, that book, because it was actually, he was just writing it, and as I bought it, it was adding to it. But I said, I gotta reward him, and it was $15. I don't care. Let's just buy and reward this guy for writing this stuff.
That's great. That's great.
Kind of the way I felt when I was reading your website. That's what I want to say.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for that feedback. Again, people will read copy of any length if it's interesting to them. So that's the key. Again, how you're able to grasp someone's interest is by showing, or keep someone's attention is by showing that you have something interesting to share. And people will always because people do read long copy, they do invest time and attention in engaging with marketing. It's just, they will only invest it if they find it interesting, if they feel that there is something of value for them to discover in the marketing.
Yeah, if we can dive them in the story or whatever it is that that we are talking about. Great, thanks for keeping up with my bad Wi-Fi and with all those things we didn't plan to happen. Thanks for sharing with us a couple of examples and the knowledge about the way you do. I like the example with not the example, actually, the way you are coming up with a copy and with the research, which is related to, to your formal education. And guys, I would recommend that you go straight to the first minute of this episode and digest all the things slowly. Come up with there are tons of small gems, examples, and all kind of stuff. Then you go to connect with Eden on LinkedIn. Go to her website, check out what she's doing, and start the relationship. Eden, thank you again for coming to the podcast, for being the guest. I think like in the next year, lots of things will change as the COVID started slowly to go down, and we might record another one when we talk about specific examples and how the next change will impact the copy, the conversions, and everything.
Yeah, I'd be happy to join you. And again, thank you for inviting me. It's been great speaking with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Great to get to know you, to connect, the face with the look and the voice and everything. And guys, one message for you for the end of the episode is, as always, keep it funky.